And even on the Sermon on the Mount, that even if a man look at a woman with lust, he's committed adultery in his heart. And that is a very heavy thing to say, actually. It means that any thought, any feelings that go through your mind are related to almost doing the actual thing with action and speech. But in Buddhist morality deals only with action and speech. You have good thoughts, bad thoughts that go through the mind. You know that your standard for action is to do good and refrain from doing evil. So then you have a choice. If bad thoughts go through your mind, say to kill somebody, then you refrain from doing it. If a thought goes through your mind to help somebody, then you do that. You act on that. You have a choice then of action or speech, and that your guide is to do good, refrain from doing evil, purify the mind. So then, by doing that, then the mind is actually purified, so that even the tendency towards bad thoughts will go away. Your mind just becomes more and more pure. But as long as you're guilt-ridden and frightened and of bad thoughts, then you're going to increase the amount of bad thinking. It becomes obsessive. And it turns on yourself. Like, people have so much self-disparagement in this country. They're so critical because they hate their bad thoughts. And so that I'm no good. I shouldn't have these bad thoughts. There's something wrong with me. Something missing, something horrible, something frightening in me. Because if I were good, I wouldn't have these bad thoughts. So then it becomes an obsession, and the more you resist and fight bad thoughts, the stronger they become. But if you just note that bad thoughts come and go in the mind, nothing, is it? Nothing. It's gone. You haven't made it into a problem. You haven't acted on it, so there's no karma connected to it. It's just you haven't suppressed it, you haven't indulged in it. It's just something like a cloud in the sky, just passes over and it's gone. Imagine how miserable you'd be if the rain clouds that go over England, if every time a rain cloud came and you took it personally. Think how upset you'd be most of the time. But we don't do that. Why? Because the rain clouds look far away from us, don't they? They're up there and they don't seem like ours, and we don't have any control over them anyway, so that they just come and go according to conditions we can't control. So that when rain clouds are there, they're there. When they're not there, they're not there. We don't make a personal problem about it. But about mental conditions we do, because they seem so close, they seem so personal, so that we make problems. This rain cloud in my mind shouldn't be here. I've got to get rid of it. So then there's, even when it's gone, there's the worry that it might come back. Where the way of the Buddha is noting that these are that good comes and goes, bad comes and goes. Good is what we do. We say, do good, be kind, be generous, refrain from doing evil things with your body and speech. To try to be considerate with speech, not to insult or lie or gossip or curse others. To use your body for kind actions, good actions, rather than using it for killing or stealing or exploitation. To refrain from corrupting the body with drugs and drink, so that you lose your ability to judge good and bad, and to be aware when you're heedless, when your mind's in that heedless state of drunkenness, then you can steal, lie, commit adultery, do everything. and out of just heedless delusions. So that in Buddhism, you're not trying to, you're developing the consciousness that isn't dependent upon drugs. I remember back in the early 60s in California, they started this drug scene was beginning, and they thought that all these drugs were going to enlighten people. If you take this LSD and that, you're going to become enlightened to it, because they had kind of enlightening effects. You began to see things in a different way, and it seemed like enlightenment was there. So that the hope that all you have to do is have $5 that you pay, you get a pill, take it, and you're enlightened. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Other than becoming a monk, being celibate, living on one meal a day, not having any money and all that. It's the hard way, and you can just have $5, buy a pill, take it, and then sit there, and you're suddenly enlightened. But that didn't enlighten anyone, because it was coming from the wrong understanding. One thing that is not wanting to suffer, wanting to be happy. These are, say, the goals of human beings, aren't they? We want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. So that, like getting drunk, sometimes we feel happy when we're that way. All the kind of tensions and problems of life kind of fade out in those moments, and we can feel kind of elated and happy, and we like that feeling. So then, of course, we tend to seek that more and more in drugs and drink. But by doing that, we create the conditions for more and more suffering, because that's not the way out of suffering, is through drugs. And the ordinary consciousness, unaffected by drugs, is what we most fear, what is boring, what is, tending to resist the most. We want excitement, maybe. So we spend a lot of money on riding in fast cars and doing dangerous things and all kinds of exciting sensual experiences and interesting company and interesting intellectual hobbies and so forth to excite the mind, because ordinary consciousness without excitement tends to be boring. We don't know what to do with it. We want to fill it up with something interesting, so that you hear people say, I want an interesting life. I want to have a kind of glamorous and interesting profession. I want to have meaning, and I want life to have some excitement, some verve, vitality to it. And this ideal of having a life where it's just continuously interesting and scintillating for us. And yet, as I was saying, so much of our life is boring. It's uninteresting. It's non-violent. It's ordinary. And until we're willing to accept that and look to that more and more, then our life will be merely a heedless attempt towards this other, constantly distracting ourselves with interesting objects or exciting experiences. That's why with meditation in Buddhist monasteries, everything is boring, isn't it? Meditation is, you're sitting there, you're not having an interesting conversation with somebody. There's nothing really to look at that's exciting. If the monks do chant, it's monotone. It's not like opera or some kind of exciting music, is it? It doesn't go up and down, and it doesn't arouse emotions. On a meditation retreat, like these 10-day retreats, people come and they voluntarily come. They're not kind of pushed and forced, I hope anyway. And they keep silent for 10 days, and they just sit and walk and stand and lie down. They don't talk to each other, and they watch their breaths, and they watch their feet walking. It doesn't be more boring than that for 10 days. That's like asking for to be bored, isn't it? But in that openness of heart towards what is truly ordinary and boring, you transcend boredom. And then you don't need excitement after that. When you transcend boredom, then you don't need to be excited. But as long as you hate boredom, then you'll need excitement or interesting things to distract you. That's why it's such a paradox. The way out of suffering is by embracing it. That's a paradox, isn't it? When you think the way out of suffering is by getting rid of it, but the way out of suffering is by opening to it. And so that changes the whole perspective. Where, say, I want to be happy and I don't want to have any suffering or pain. That philosophy of life will arouse in us always this need to be running about, trying to seek comfort or happiness or excitement or interesting objects. But when we open to the suffering, to boredom, to misery, it ceases. It's not permanent. All misery is impermanent, so it ceases. Then you're aware of the natural state of mind without suffering in it. And then that's wisdom. You have a perspective and you have a view. You see things in how they relate, rather than just choosing one thing after another.